A single father walked out of the interview room in silence. He had just been rejected for a front desk position at the billion-dollar corporation, where he worked nights as a janitor, not because he lacked ability, but because he did not fit the image they wanted. He chose to leave with his dignity intact, rather than beg for another chance. But as he prepared to exit the building, something unexpected happened. The billionaire CEO of the corporation ran into the lobby and called his name in front of everyone. Why? Ryan Cole pushed the mop across the marble floor of the corporate lobby at 2 a.m. The building was silent except for the hum of the ventilation system and the occasional squeak of his cartwheels. He had worked this shift for 3 years now, cleaning the offices and hallways of a billion-dollar corporation while the rest of the city slept. The work was honest, but it barely covered rent and groceries. After his wife died, he had taken whatever job he could find that allowed him to be home when his son woke up for school. Leo was 8 years old now. The boy never complained about their small apartment or the second-hand clothes Ryan bought from thrift stores. He was a good kid, patient in ways that children should not have to be. 2 months ago, Leo had been rushed to the emergency room with a severe asthma attack. The hospital bill arrived 3 weeks later, and Ryan spent every night since then staring at the number printed at the bottom of the page. Even with payment plans, the debt felt insurmountable. Tonight, as Ryan emptied a trash bin near the employee bulletin board, something caught his eye. A printed flyer announced an open position for front desk support. The role was administrative, daytime hours, and the salary was more than double what he earned now. Health insurance was included. Ryan read the notice twice, then pulled out his phone and took a picture of it. He stood there longer than he should have, the mop leaning against his hip, his mind running through possibilities he had not allowed himself to consider in years. He knew the building better than most people who worked in it. He had cleaned every floor, every conference room, every executive suite. He had watched employees come and go, had overheard their conversations, had seen how the business operated from the inside. He understood customer service. Before his wife got sick, he had worked at a hotel for 8 years, managing guest relations and handling complaints with patience and professionalism. That experience had to count for something. Ryan finished his shift at 6 a.m, went home, and spent the next 2 hours writing a cover letter. He did not exaggerate his qualifications, but he made sure to emphasize his years of experience in customer-facing roles and his familiarity with the building's operations. He attached his resume, which listed his previous job at the hotel and his current position as a janitor. Then he clicked submit before he could talk himself out of it. 3 days later, an email arrived. Ryan was sitting at the kitchen table when his phone buzzed. The subject line read, "Interview invitation." He read it 3 times to make sure he had not misunderstood. They wanted to meet with him the following Tuesday at 10 a.m. He looked across the table at Leo, who was eating cereal before school, and felt something he had not felt in a long time. Hope. Ryan borrowed a suit from his neighbor, a man who had worked in sales before retiring. The jacket was a size too large, but Ryan ironed it until the creases were sharp. He polished his only pair of dress shoes and practiced his answers to common interview questions in front of the bathroom mirror. On Tuesday morning, he dropped Leo off at school early, then took the bus downtown. He arrived at the building 30 minutes before his appointment and sat in the lobby, watching employees pass through the glass doors with their coffee cups and briefcases. At 10 o'clock, he took the elevator to the 15th floor. The doors opened onto a sleek hallway with glass walls and modern furniture. Ryan had cleaned these offices before, but he had never walked through them during business hours. A young woman at the reception desk smiled at him and asked him to wait. He sat in a chair near the window and watched the city below, trying to steady his breathing. When they called his name, he followed the receptionist into a conference room. 3 people were already seated at a long glass table. The man in the center introduced himself as Marcus, the head of human resources. The woman to his left was an assistant from the HR department, and the man on the right managed the front desk operations. They gestured for Ryan to sit across from them. The room was bright and cold, the kind of space designed to make people feel small. Marcus opened a folder and glanced at Ryan's resume. He asked about his previous job at the hotel, and Ryan answered confidently. He described how he had handled difficult guests, how he had trained new employees, and how he had maintained a calm demeanor even during high-pressure situations. The operations manager nodded along, and for a moment, Ryan allowed himself to believe this might actually work. Then Marcus leaned back in his chair and folded his hands. He asked Ryan where he had gone to college. Ryan told him he had not attended college. He had started working right out of high school to support his family. Marcus wrote something down in his notes. The assistant glanced at the operations manager, and Ryan felt the shift in the room. The tone of the questions changed. They were no longer asking what he could do. They were asking who he was. Marcus asked Ryan what he was currently doing for work. Ryan told him the truth. He worked nights as a janitor in the same building. The operations manager's expression did not change, but something in his eyes did. Marcus nodded slowly, as if he had just confirmed something he already suspected. He asked Ryan if he thought he could represent the company's image in a professional environment. Ryan felt his chest tighten, but he kept his voice steady. He said he believed his experience spoke for itself. The assistant asked if he had any certifications or formal training in hospitality management. Ryan said he did not, but he had 8 years of hands-on experience. Marcus smiled politely and said they appreciated his time. The operations manager thanked him for coming in. Ryan understood what was happening. They were not rejecting his qualifications. They were rejecting him. He sat there for a moment, looking at the 3 people across the table. He could feel the weight of their judgment, the unspoken conclusion that he did not belong in this room. He thought about Leo waiting at home. He thought about the hospital bills stacked on the kitchen counter. He thought about the years he had spent working in the shadows of this building, invisible to everyone who passed him by. Ryan stood up. He thanked them for their time and told them he understood. He did not ask for another chance. He did not explain himself further. He simply turned and walked out of the conference room, his shoulders straight and his head up. The door clicked shut behind him, and he stood alone in the hallway. His hands were shaking, but he forced himself to breathe. At least he had not begged. At least he had not lost the only thing he had left. He walked toward the elevator and pressed the button. The doors opened, and he stepped inside. As the elevator descended, he stared at his reflection in the polished steel doors. He looked tired. He looked like a man who had been fighting for too long. When the doors opened on the ground floor, he stepped out into the lobby and headed toward the exit. The morning sunlight poured through the glass walls, and Ryan walked into it without looking back. Ryan crossed the lobby toward the glass doors at the front of the building. The space was vast and polished, filled with the muted sounds of people moving through their workday. He had mopped this floor 100 times, always after midnight, when no one was around to see him. Now he walked through it in daylight, wearing a borrowed suit, carrying the weight of another failure. The hospital bills were still unpaid. Leo was still waiting at home, and the only chance Ryan had given himself had just closed behind him. He told himself it was fine. He had made the right choice by walking out. He had not begged, had not lowered himself, had not let them strip away what little dignity he had left. That had to count for something. He reached the door and pushed it open. The cool air hit his face, and he stepped out onto the sidewalk. Behind him, the building rose into the sky, indifferent and untouchable. He was about to walk away when a voice called out from inside the lobby. "Ryan Cole, please stop." Ryan turned around. A woman was standing in the middle of the lobby, near the security desk. She was breathing hard, as if she had just been running. Her dark suit was immaculate, her posture straight, but her expression was urgent. Ryan did not recognize her at first. Then he saw the ID badge clipped to her jacket and the way the security guard stepped back when she approached. This was Alexandra Reed, the CEO of the entire corporation. Ryan had seen her picture in the company newsletter, but he had never been close enough to see her face. She walked toward him quickly, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Ryan stood frozen in the doorway, unsure whether to step back inside or keep walking. Alexandra stopped a few feet away from him, still catching her breath. She looked directly at him, and there was something in her eyes that Ryan could not name. It was not pity. It was not curiosity. It was recognition. Alexandra said his name again, quieter this time, and gestured for him to step back inside. Ryan hesitated. He had just walked out of that building determined never to come back. But something in her tone made him stop. He let the door close behind him and followed her to a corner of the lobby, away from the security desk and the employees passing through. Alexandra looked at him for a long moment before she spoke. She said she had been monitoring the recruitment process as part of a company-wide culture review. She had access to the observation system that allowed her to watch interview sessions remotely. She had seen his interview. She had seen everything. Ryan felt his jaw tighten. He asked her why she was telling him this. Alexandra met his eyes and said she recognized him. 2 months ago, an elderly woman named Margaret Sutherland had nearly collapsed in this very lobby. Margaret was one of the company's most important partners, responsible for a contract worth $50 million. She had arrived early for a meeting and experienced a sudden spell of dizziness. Ryan had been cleaning nearby when he noticed her stumble. He had seen the signs immediately and gave her a piece of candy from his pocket, recognizing the symptoms of low blood sugar. He had helped her sit down and called for security to bring water and assistance. Margaret had recovered quickly, and the meeting went forward without incident. Afterward, she had mentioned the janitor named Ryan to Alexandra, praising his attentiveness and calm response. Alexandra had intended to find him and thank him personally, but the moment had passed and she never followed through. Until today, when she saw his face on the interview monitor and realized he was the same man. Ryan listened without speaking. He did not know what to say. He had not helped Margaret Sutherland because he wanted recognition. He had helped her because it was the right thing to do. Alexandra seemed to understand that. She told him she had watched the entire interview, and she had seen how Marcus and the others had treated him. She said it was unacceptable. Ryan felt something crack inside him. He asked her if she was offering him the job out of gratitude. He did not want charity. He did not want to be hired because someone felt they owed him a favor. Alexandra shook her head. She said this was not about gratitude. It was about accountability. She had just watched her own company reject a qualified candidate based on his background and appearance rather than his abilities. That was a failure of the system, and she intended to correct it. Ryan took a step back. He told her he did not need special treatment. He did not want to be given something he had not earned. Alexandra looked at him with an expression that was both firm and tired. She said he had already earned it. The problem was that the people conducting the interview had refused to see it. Ryan wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at him. He had been let down too many times to trust offers that sounded too good. He asked her what she expected from him. Alexandra said she expected nothing except that he be given a fair chance. She wanted to bring Marcus and the hiring panel down to the lobby and address the situation directly. She wanted Ryan to be part of that conversation. Before Ryan could respond, Alexandra pulled out her phone and made a call. Her voice was calm but commanding as she told someone on the other end to send Marcus and the interview panel to the lobby immediately. She ended the call and looked back at Ryan. She told him he did not have to stay. He could walk out right now, and no one would blame him. But if he stayed, she would make sure the truth was spoken. Ryan stood there, torn between the instinct to leave and the faint, stubborn hope that something might actually change. He thought about Leo. He thought about the years he had spent invisible in this building. He thought about the way Marcus had looked at him, as if his life experience meant nothing. he decided to stay. 5 minutes later, Marcus stepped out of the elevator, followed by the assistant and the operations manager. They looked confused when they saw Alexandra standing in the lobby with Ryan. Marcus approached carefully, his expression cautious. He greeted Alexandra and asked if there was a problem. Alexandra said there was. She told Marcus she had reviewed the interview he conducted with Ryan Cole, and she wanted an explanation for the decision to reject him. Marcus glanced at Ryan, then back at Alexandra. He said the decision had been made based on standard criteria. The candidate did not meet the qualifications for the position. Alexandra asked him to be specific. Marcus hesitated, then said that Ryan lacked a college degree and formal training in hospitality management. Alexandra asked if the job description required a degree. Marcus admitted it did not, but he said the team had determined that a degree was preferable for someone representing the company at the front desk. Alexandra asked if the job description mentioned anything about professional image or background. Marcus said it did not explicitly, but those factors were part of the overall assessment. Alexandra asked him to clarify what he meant by professional image. Marcus shifted his weight. He said the role required someone who could project a polished and credible presence to clients and visitors. Ryan felt the words land like stones. He had known what Marcus meant during the interview, but hearing it stated so plainly in front of the CEO made it impossible to ignore. Alexandra turned to the operations manager and asked if he agreed with Marcus's assessment. The man nodded, though he looked uncomfortable. He said they had to consider how candidates would fit into the company culture. Alexandra let the silence stretch. Then she asked them if they had reviewed Ryan's work history. Marcus said they had. Alexandra asked if they were aware that Ryan had 8 years of customer service experience at a hotel before taking his current position. Marcus said they were. Alexandra asked if they had considered the fact that Ryan had been working in their building for 3 years, maintaining the space they all took for granted, without a single complaint about his performance. Marcus said that was a different kind of work. Alexandra asked how it was different. Marcus struggled to answer. He said janitorial work did not require the same skill set as front desk support. Alexandra asked if he believed that interacting with guests at a hotel required less skill than greeting visitors in a corporate lobby. Marcus said nothing. Alexandra turned to Ryan. She asked him if he had ever encountered a difficult or challenging situation while working at the hotel. Ryan said he had. He described a time when a guest became angry about a booking error and began shouting in the lobby. Ryan had stayed calm, listened to the guest's concerns, and worked with the manager to find a solution that satisfied everyone involved. The guest left with an apology and a positive review. Alexandra looked back at Marcus. She asked if that kind of experience would be valuable for someone working at the front desk of a billion-dollar corporation. Marcus admitted it would. Alexandra asked why Ryan's application had been dismissed. Marcus said they had made a judgment call. Alexandra said the judgment was wrong. The assistant spoke up. She said they had been following the company's hiring standards. Alexandra told her the standards were flawed if they allowed capable candidates to be rejected based on bias rather than merit. She said the company's values emphasized fairness, integrity, and respect for all employees. She asked how those values were reflected in the decision to turn Ryan away. No one answered. Ryan stood there, watching the people who had rejected him squirm under the weight of their own contradictions. He felt a strange mix of vindication and exhaustion. He had not asked for this confrontation. He had been ready to walk away. But now that it was happening, he could not deny the relief of being seen. Alexandra told Marcus that the interview decision was being overturned. She said Ryan deserved a real evaluation, not one clouded by assumptions about his background. Marcus started to protest, but Alexandra cut him off. She said the decision was final. Then she turned to Ryan and asked if he would be willing to meet with her privately to discuss the position. Ryan looked at her, then at Marcus and the others. He could see the resentment in their eyes, the discomfort at being publicly corrected. He knew that even if he got the job, it would come with a cost. But he also knew that walking away now would mean accepting the same treatment again and again. He told Alexandra he would meet with her. Alexandra nodded and dismissed the hiring panel. Marcus and the others left without another word, disappearing back into the elevator. Alexandra gestured for Ryan to follow her to a private conference room on the second floor. The room was smaller than the one where he had been interviewed, with a round table and soft lighting. Alexandra closed the door and sat down across from him. She started by apologizing. She said she should have intervened sooner, and she took responsibility for allowing a flawed process to continue. Ryan told her he appreciated the apology, but he still did not understand why she was doing this. He asked her again if it was because of what happened with Margaret Sutherland. Alexandra said that was part of it, but not all of it. She said she had spent years building this company, and she believed deeply in its mission. But she had also seen how easy it was for organizations to lose sight of their values. She had watched talented people be overlooked because they did not fit a narrow definition of success. She said she did not want her company to be one that judged employees by their resumes instead of their character. Ryan asked her what she was offering him. Alexandra said she could not put him in the front desk position immediately. It would not be fair to him or to the team if he walked into a role without proper preparation, especially after the way the interview had gone. Instead, she wanted to offer him a 2-month training program with the customer service management team. He would be paid from the first day at twice his current salary, and he would receive full health insurance for himself and his son. At the end of the training, he would transition into the front desk support role. Ryan sat back in his chair. The offer was more than he had hoped for, but it still felt too good to be real. He asked Alexandra why she believed he could do this. She said she had seen enough in the last hour to know he had the integrity, experience, and composure the job required. She said the only thing he lacked was the opportunity, and she was offering it to him now. Ryan thought about Leo. He thought about the hospital bills and the late-night shifts and the years of feeling invisible. He thought about the look on Marcus's face when Alexandra told him his decision was wrong. He thought about the borrowed suit he was wearing and the man who had lent it to him, who had told Ryan he deserved a shot. Ryan told Alexandra he would accept the offer, but he said it was not because he needed the money, even though he did. It was because, for the first time in a long time, someone had looked at him and seen more than his circumstances. Someone had treated him like he mattered. Alexandra reached across the table and shook his hand. She told him to report to the HR office the following Monday to complete the paperwork. She said she expected him to succeed, not because she had given him a chance, but because he had already proven he could. Ryan left the conference room and walked back through the lobby. This time, he did not feel like he was leaving in defeat. He felt like he was stepping into something he had earned. He pushed through the glass doors and stood on the sidewalk, blinking in the sunlight. He pulled out his phone and typed a message to Leo. He told his son he had not won yet, but he had not given up. He pressed send and started walking toward the bus stop, his head held high. Ryan spent the weekend preparing. He told Leo about the new job, careful not to make promises he could not keep. His son listened quietly, then asked if this meant they could afford a new inhaler without waiting for the prescription assistance program. Ryan said yes. Leo smiled, and that smile carried Ryan through the anxiety of what was coming. On Monday morning, he returned to the building, wearing the same borrowed suit, this time walking through the front doors as someone with a future. The HR office was on the 3rd floor. A woman named Jessica greeted him and handed him a stack of forms to fill out. She was polite but distant, and Ryan wondered if she had heard about what happened in the lobby. He completed the paperwork in silence, signed his name at the bottom of each page, and handed everything back. Jessica told him his training would begin the following day. She gave him a folder with the schedule and the names of the people he would be working with. Ryan thanked her and left. That evening, He worked his final shift as a janitor. He had given his 2 weeks' notice, but his supervisor told him it was not necessary. The company wanted to transition him into the new role immediately. Ryan felt strange pushing the mop across the lobby floor for the last time, knowing that in a few days he would be standing on the other side of the desk. He finished the shift at dawn, went home, and slept for a few hours before picking Leo up from school. The training program started the next morning. Ryan met with the customer service management team in a conference room on the 10th floor. There were 4 other trainees, all younger than him, all with college degrees listed on their name tags. The instructor was a woman named Claire, who had worked in hospitality for 15 years. She was sharp and no nonsense, and she did not treat Ryan any differently than the others. That was all he wanted. The first week focused on communication skills and conflict resolution. Claire ran through scenarios where guests became upset or demanding, and the trainees had to respond in real time. Ryan found the exercises familiar. He had handled similar situations at the hotel, and the skills came back to him easily. Claire noticed. She called on him often, and when he answered, she nodded with approval. The other trainees began to look at him with something close to respect. The second week covered the technical systems used at the front desk. Ryan learned how to manage visitor logs, schedule conference rooms, and coordinate with security. The software was new to him, but he was methodical. He took notes, asked questions when he did not understand, and practiced on his own time. By the end of the week, he could navigate the system faster than some of the others. The third week introduced them to the executive floors. Claire explained that front desk staff occasionally interacted with senior leadership, and they needed to understand the protocols. Ryan walked through the hallways, where he had once emptied trash bins and wiped down surfaces. Now he was being taught how to greet the people who worked there, how to anticipate their needs, and how to represent the company with professionalism. He felt the weight of the transition, but also the quiet satisfaction of earning his place. In the fourth week, Claire assigned each trainee a mentor from the existing front desk team. Ryan was paired with a man named David, who had worked at the desk for 6 years. David was older than the other staff members, in his late 40s, and he carried himself with a calm confidence. He told Ryan that he had heard about what happened during the interview. He said he respected the way Ryan had handled it. David showed Ryan the routines of the front desk, the small details that were not covered in the training manual. He taught him how to read a visitor's body language, how to handle multiple requests at once, and how to stay composed when things went wrong. Ryan absorbed everything. He watched the way David interacted with guests, the way he balanced efficiency with warmth, and he tried to mirror that approach. By the end of the 2 months, Ryan felt ready. Claire conducted final evaluations with each trainee, reviewing their performance and providing feedback. When it was Ryan's turn, she told him he had exceeded expectations. She said his experience showed in the way he handled difficult situations, and his work ethic had set an example for the others. She recommended him for the front desk position without reservation. On his first official day, Ryan arrived early. He wore a suit he had bought with his first paycheck, a simple gray one that fit him properly. He stood behind the front desk and looked out at the lobby, the same space he had cleaned for 3 years. The morning light poured through the glass walls, and employees streamed through the doors, coffee in hand, absorbed in their routines. Some of them recognized him. A few nodded. Most did not notice. David worked the desk alongside him, guiding him through the morning rush. Ryan greeted visitors, checked IDs, and directed people to the correct floors. The work was straightforward, but it required focus and patience. He found a rhythm quickly. When a delivery driver became frustrated about a delayed package, Ryan stayed calm and worked through the issue until it was resolved. When an elderly client arrived early for a meeting and seemed disoriented, Ryan offered her a seat and brought her a glass of water. She thanked him, and he told her it was no trouble. At lunch, Ryan took his break in the employee cafeteria. He sat alone at a table near the window, eating a sandwich he had packed that morning. A few of the other front desk staff joined him, and they talked about their shifts and the quirks of the building. Ryan listened more than he spoke, but he felt the slow, tentative beginning of belonging. In the afternoon, Alexandra Reed came through the lobby. She was walking with 2 members of her executive team, discussing something on a tablet. She glanced toward the front desk as she passed, and her eyes met Ryan's. She gave him a small nod, nothing more. Ryan nodded back. It was not a gesture of gratitude or congratulation. It was simply acknowledgement. He was here. He was doing the work. That was enough. At the end of the day, Ryan clocked out and took the elevator down to the lobby. He walked through the glass doors and into the evening air. The city was alive with traffic and voices, and Ryan felt the weight of the day settle into his bones. He was tired, but it was a different kind of tired. It was the exhaustion that came from work that mattered, from a day spent being seen. He pulled out his phone and opened his messages. He typed a short text to Leo, telling him he was on his way home. Then he added one more line. Dad didn't win, but Dad didn't give up. He sent the message and put the phone back in his pocket. He walked toward the bus stop, his reflection moving across the glass windows of the buildings around him. For the first time in years, he recognized the person looking back. Degrees could open doors, but character and experience decided who deserved to walk through them. And sometimes, what a person needed was not an opportunity. It was being seen for who they truly were. Ryan had been seen. And now, he was exactly where he belonged.